Hello and welcome back to the Offensive Zone channel. We're picking up the FMDGs, the Franchise Mode Discussion Group part of this channel, and we're going to be looking at the NHL22 Custom Sliders today. So these are the sliders that we've designed as a community and as a group for the latest game in the NHL franchise. Now this is going to be a little bit different to what we've done in the past. We've used a different base. We normally use the full sim as our basis, but this time around we've used competitive mode. And the reason why we've set them as our base sliders is because we've seen much better CPU interaction, more shots, and better statistics overall by using the competitive base, which is a big difference from last year. And you can see here and all the other bits are pretty standard, so superstar difficulty, obviously skill stick, but that's the big change there, is that we've used, when we've created these FMDG sliders, we've used that competitive base as the starting point. But with the FMDG stuff, we've got a Discord group, and for those of you that are part of it, you'll know that we share within the community the sliders. We get feedback, we get interaction, we get your thoughts on what you think works, what doesn't work, to amend. So this is version 1. There will be further versions as EA releases gameplay updates and as we get feedback from you. But as I said, that's all part of the Discord group, of which there is a link in the description below. So I recommend you hopping across. We're also going to have a custom roster and a created players videos to show you the players that are missing and the roster edits that we've done. But that's it. So to make this a bit easier for yourself, make sure you hop in to this section here, click on the competitive sliders, on the competitive gameplay presets I should say, and use that as your base. It'll save you a lot of tinkering. That will be the difference between this and the full sim, and that'll help you get to a place where statistically you're getting a far more realistic game, which is the important bit here. So for that reason, we've used competitive sliders as our base for the sliders I'm going to run you through now. In terms of rules, nothing too crazy here. Authentic as the post-whistle rules. Fighting, you can go between two. In franchise mode, I normally have this as set as 2 of 2, but it doesn't particularly matter which way you do it. Obviously, everything else is set as the NHL standard. Penalty time scaling. So again, this is a change. So we've changed ours to be 3 of 6 and 1 of 6. Now remembering that 6 of 6 means that it counts down in real time, whereas obviously 0 of 6 counts down at the same rate as the clock in game. Now we're playing 5-minute periods, so we don't really want it to count down real life. We'd rather it be at 3 of 6, which gives you enough time on both the penalty power play and the penalty kill to be able to do that. And the same obviously with the incidental. We lower the incidental because that's when both you and the CPU, or human if you're playing a human character, are both have offsetting penalties, so that doesn't really matter how quick that is, and that's why that's set to 1 of 6. So into the gameplay sliders then. As I said, we've used the competitive set as the set this time around, which is a big shift change for us, but we have found it so far to be pretty useful. Obviously EA does tend to tinker with the gameplay as it goes on, so we may find during the year that we end up flipping back to full sim, but as at the build, we're just about coming up to Halloween. I don't think there's any gameplay updates expected just yet, and there were very few last year, so as it stands now we're on build 1.00, so the first build after the beta. Gameplay always set to latest. If you have a personal preference you can change this, but at the moment, as I said, there isn't any, so latest it is. Attribute effects, we leave this at 5 of 10. Some people prefer to ratchet this up. They feel it makes the better players stand out, but I think with the X Factors this year you don't need that, and you do feel now like you're against Austin Matthews or McDavid. When you're against them, those X Factors are pretty strong. You can feel those in game. Broken stick frequency, this is set to 35 out of 100. Slight uplift on that. 33 I think it is on standard, just to try and emulate a bit more of what we see in full sim, where there is a few more broken sticks. Game speed, this is set to 2 of 6. Now this was where I have this trade-off. So in the skating you'll see that the acceleration is still at 65, which is the default for competitive, but to try and slow the game down a little bit and to give it a much more of a simulation feel, that's why I've put the game speed to 2 of 6. You could put it to 1 of 6, you could put it to 0 if you like. It's kind of a personal preference on this. It doesn't affect the game play as such, it just slows it down. But I found that anything lower than 2, the animations start to look a little bit weird. So 2 out of 6 looked about right to me. Fatigue effects, this is how affected the players will be when they're tired. I leave this to 50 because to me it's an artificial thing that I know on the difficulty that I play on will hurt me more than the CPU, so hence the reason why I've left that on 50. Fatigue recovery though is at 50 as well. Now I've run plenty of franchise mode games using these sliders, and you need all 4 lines. You need your power play lines, you need your penalty kill lines. You're not going to be at a position where you finish on the power play and then you can roll your first line again. It works, it really does work. So injury likelihood or occurrence here, so that's again set at 50. At the moment I'm finding that okay. This may be something we have to tinker with as things go on, but so far, touch wood, in career mode I'm seeing a right amount of injuries for me. Nothing consistent injuries, so lots of them, which is what you want. It's the severity of them which is the importance. Hockey's a very physical game, a bit like NFL, people get injured, but it's what you don't want is your whole team on concussion protocol, because that's annoying. All of this is left exactly as it is in simulation, so I'm not going to run through it all because there's no point. You can see it here, 50-50, 65-65. CPU and human tends to be the same. Not always, you'll see a few where I've changed that, but generally it's the same. But everything is as in competitive slider set. Shooting, so this is the one where I've tinkered with it a lot. And the reason being is I want the CPU to have shots. I want to have shots. I'm aiming for around 29 to 33 shots per team per game on 5-minute periods. That's what we're aiming for, and that's why we pick 5-minute periods. It's not to speed the game up, it's not because I can't be bothered to do any longer, it's because for me 5 minutes is a 15-minute game. That's long enough, right? And if as long as we can get what we want in terms of the statistics, then for me that's ticking all the boxes. So one time accuracy we've dropped up to 30, starts on 50 I believe, maybe in 55 on competitive, really high, far too high, and obviously we're going to nerf that straight away. I'm arguably take that down lower, but you get to a point where the human starts to suffer more than you're getting out of the CPU, so 30 was a nice balance. Shot accuracy, this has dropped from 50 to 40. Again, this is to help the goalies, but it's anybody that's played hockey knows it's shooting is a very difficult skill. It's not that easy to be that accurate all the time. It's more realistic for shots to be spinning past the post, even though that won't class as a shot in game, as the keeper saves it. So we found that pretty useful. Shot power, not change that on either, so leave that at 50. I've seen people tinker with that. For me, you're starting to mess with the mechanics of the game then, and I don't like that. So I think the base for NHL22 is really good this year, so this is just about harnessing on certain aspects to try and get it that bit more realistic, but it's not a bad starting point with NHL22, if I'm being honest. And anyone that's in the Discord group, and there is a link in the description below, you'll know that I'm very critical of EA when they drop the ball. Madden 22, for example. So slapshot accuracy is at 45 out of 100. Again, I originally had that at 40, the same as shot. The reason why I've put it up to 45 is to help the human. CPU doesn't have a lot of slap shots, being brutally honest. And with the human, we're having it at 40, you will struggle to get it on net. You really will. Pass assist is 33, so that's a slight decrease. I think it's 35 on competitive, but it needs to be at 33. Pass speed, leave them well alone. Source of pass speed, leave it alone. Just don't change any of those things. You're starting to tinker with things, in my opinion, start to change the animations within the game. Pass accuracy. Now, this is the first one you want to change. Your pass accuracy doesn't matter. Why it doesn't matter is because this isn't FIFA. You won't see the ping passing in terms of being aimed at a player when you want to pass to them. What affects that pass more than where you're aiming is how hard you're holding down the right trigger or the R2 button when you're passing. When you're passing, the amount of power you put on it will determine how the player then receives the puck, how easy it is for them to receive the puck, whether it bobbles off their stick, and all those kind of things. So you don't need the pass accuracy adjusting. CPU though 100% does. At 35, I'm still not really happy with this. You could argue, I've seen people drop it to 0. Honestly, I've tried it on 50, I've tried it on 35, I've tried it on 0. I haven't really seen a big deal of difference in terms of the passing accuracy. The CPU is always between 85 and 95 in terms of their accuracy, which is unrealistic, but is what it is. Pass interceptions is left at standard. Pass reception ease is slightly decreased. So this is higher on competitive originally. So I've reduced this down to the way it is on full sim. So that needs to be 25. Reception reaction time 50, leave that. Puck control rating effect, leave that. 50 again. Puck speed reception effect, leave that as it is. Pickup type effect, leave that as it is. Again, 50 and 50. Bouncing puck receptions, 50. I wish I hadn't done this with a cold. This is hard work trying to say all these names. Now, puck control. Puck control is left as it is, except for this one here. So change puck control to 33. Deking impact needs to be 20. Spin deking impact is 50. Skating impact is 0. Now, that is very different to what's on simulation. Simulation has it, I think, at 50 for skating impact. Don't put it in. You won't see that much difference from you, but for whatever reason, it's this bit here in terms of puck control which changes how aggressive the CPU is. I don't know why, but it does. And you want to be challenged. I know I want to be challenged, and this is the way to do it. Goal is cover frequency 60. You could have that at 75, which is where sim is. I leave it at 60, but you could have that higher if you wanted to. Goalie passing, again, you could lower that to be more like simulation, but I've got it set where competitive is, which is 83 out of 100. Now, cross crease reaction time. So these ones, I've toyed with this a few times. Try it at 50, which is what I'm dropping it down to here. This is what I've got in my franchise mode right now is 50. So all those at 50, and then these two at 60, which is standard, by the way. That's the way it is. So that's not me changing anything. I tried increasing it to 55. I like it. The goalies are very good, but the biggest issue you'll get is the CPU goalie becomes unbeatable, and your goalie is still beatable. So I think we'll probably end up with a happy medium, which is where we're around 53 to 55, but the CPU is still at 50. And the goalies this year are good. They're hard, and at 55, I was finding most games were finishing 1 or 2, goals per team, and that's not enough in the NHL these days. Checking, no changes here. Checking is left at the level it's at in competitive slider set. Just to reiterate that, competitive slider set, not full sim. So you see no board effect for the puck carrier. Again, you may say, why do that? Because it hurts the CPU, whereas you as a user, not to run into boards. The CPU isn't that clever. Stick lift effect at 50, poke checking power 50, accuracy 30, 20 for incident of contact, preparedness effect 51. These are all exactly standard. Checking balancing effect rating 83 standard, speed effect 33, size effect 25. I haven't changed any of this. This is all exactly as it is in the competitive slider set you start with. So make sure you start with those because you save yourself a lot of work. And we've got screenshots of all of these in the Discord group if you want to apply them. And again, the link's in the description below. But save yourself the effort and the time and just do it that way. Nearly there. So penalties. CPU penalties at 40, CPU teammate penalties at 35. Now that's a change from the simulation one to have them both at 40. Now I don't like that because as the human, you will take penalties yourself anyway. Normally you are the guy who's making the interception or the poke check. So having that disparity between the 35 and the 40, I think that works. Because you do see your teammates will take penalties, but you don't want them taking loads of penalties because that's you're going to do some yourself. In terms of the penalties, all of this is exactly as standard. So 50-50 for most, or a couple that are higher. I think it's the last one at the end, which is interception, which is higher. I could find it here. Interference is at 83. Now, what you could do if you want it to be true to the NHL at the moment is we're seeing a lot of cross-checking penalties being given. So you might want to up that to 60 just to kind of add that bit more NHL right now realism. But you will see a lot of interference penalties. You'll see a few, but the penalties really have been nerfed this year. So what you won't see is the constant tripping penalties, which we've seen before. AI. So AI learning, I always have at 6 of 6. Now difficulty adjustment is tempting, but don't touch this, because in previous games I've always had this ratcheted up to 6 to try and give myself the ultimate challenge on this game. All that happens is that ice tilt just tilts even more towards the CPU. So you'll see them just, no matter what you have their goalie set to, they'll be impossible, and your goalie will won't be able to catch a beach ball. So it's just leave it at 0 of 6. Let the sliders do the work, and if you're too good and you want to up it, then you can, I guess. But personally, I've found there to be pretty erratic CPU kind of levels with that. So face-off difficulty, I'll leave at 50, and fight will leave at 50. I've seen some people change these. The fights are a little bit easy, but it depends who you've got in your team. So sometimes I'll knock them up to 55. If you're good at at the face-off kind of play, then you might want to up that as well. But I found 50 has been quite good. I've done a season with a Kraken, and I found that okay. And CPU strategy adjustment, I'll normally have that on 6, but 5 or 6 is plenty. So that is our FMDG, so the Franchise Mode Discussion Group slider set. As it stands, this is version 1. We will be updating it throughout the year. And one of the things that we like to do is to get member feedback on the sliders. So give them a go, see what you think. You can leave comments in the video. You can go onto the Discord group and do it there, which is what I would recommend. We've also got a roster editing document on there as well, and a list of the missing players, so those players that you need to create all within the group, with tips, screenshots, everything you need to get it done in game. So whether you're an expert or not, there's a step-by-step guide which will help you do that. I hope everybody's enjoying NHL 22. I know that we are, and we will see you on the next video. So thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.